It's 5:30. I'd like to call tonight's regular Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, November 16th to order here in the boardroom. Do we have a roll call, please, Tammy?
Ron Liberty, Kendra Osnes.
Here.
Jacqueline Gremler.
Here.
Maria Volpe.
Here.
Brett Waller.
Here.
Linda Yingling.
Here.
Paul Crew.
Here.
Chad Krieger.
Here.
Kevin Blake.
Here. If you would please join me as you're able, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Merrill Area Public Schools Board of Education meeting. MAPS respects the role our elected board members serve and the function of our board meetings. Board members and administrators are committed to working collaboratively to provide our students a safe learning environment and the highest level of achievement. This meeting is a formal event, and professional conduct is the expectation for all in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Next, we have public comment to the board. I did not have any pink slips turned in. Hearing none, we will move right on to recognition. Tonight, we'd like to start with the board recognizing Coach Chris Crew for being the longest-serving female head coach in Merrill history and one of the longest tenured coaches in all of our sports and athletics. Certainly near and dear to my heart because my kids have been part of volleyball, from players to management to just helping out at tournaments. So certainly, besides recognizing that, just want to thank you as a board and personally for everything you've done. You know, your success and the program success is a reflection of yourself and your team and all the volleyball players that have been there through the many years. And we got to see that at the last match in that video that was put together, and seeing players that have been with you and coaches and some that are still playing collegiately. So you know, like I said, some people have this vision that it just takes a few weeks, but it certainly takes year-round. There's youth programs, there's club sports, there's weights and all the different things. So certainly, like I said, looking through that and looking at the records of games won or matches won and conference championships and playoffs and trips to state, just want to take this moment to congratulate and recognize you, Coach Krug.
Dumb pad. They got a dumb pad. They go like boom.
I don't know if there's anything you'd like to summarize with what I've talked about.
Well, you pretty much summed it up, but.
Oh, not very well.
The one thing that comes to mind is, I started 35 years ago at the ripe old age of 23. And at 2001, I resigned and said, well, I will never take a team to state. I will never be the head coach in Merrill again. I knew that at 2001. And then with encouragement from Mr. Murray back in 2013, never say never, because the rest is history, and I appreciate all the opportunities I had, and thanks for the memories, my athletes and my coaches. It's been a great time. It's been the highlight of my professional career, really. I mean, a lot of good memories, so thank you very much.
Congratulations. Next, the board would like to recognize, and I know that's a tough act to follow, but our Prairie River Middle School Student Services and Front Offices team. Katrina Canusby, Laura Forster, Michelle Steffen, Jessica Frick, Virginia Simon, Tara Honeyman, and Aaron Ingersoll. They're being recognized for their ongoing commitment to our student, staff, and families in ensuring every student has what they need to be a successful PRMS student. So I'd like to recognize and thank them this evening. So certainly, the board wants to recognize everybody in this group. But if you've ever been to the middle school or any of our schools, it does take, as we would say, a village to keep everything together, answer all the phones, keep everyone in order. So I want to thank you all for everything you do on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Good job, Brooke and Isaiah, for springing in after the chair.
Yes. Speaking of Brooke and Isaiah, next on our agenda this evening, we'll turn it over to our Student Board of Education representatives to update us on what's going on at the high school.
All right. On November 11th, the high school put on a Veterans Day Assembly for all Merrill High School students to attend. The assembly focused on recognizing and thanking veterans for their service through speeches and songs. The assembly was a great opportunity for students to thank veterans for all that they have done to protect the freedoms that we have as Americans. Winter sports are starting up, including hockey, basketball, and wrestling. The girls' basketball team had their first game last night, and they won in resounding fashion 80-34 over Ashland. The student athletes are excited for the upcoming season ahead. On Monday, students had the opportunity to travel down to Notre Dame to visit the campus. It was a long drive to get there, but the students had an amazing chance to take in the beautiful scenery that is Notre Dame. This trip is one of the final college tours for this year. Students have had the opportunity to travel to many colleges, including Madison, La Crosse, River Falls, and more. These trips are very helpful for students because many students find their home for the next 4 years through these tours.
This past week, Merrill High School Theater Jays put on a performance of the High School Musical Junior, which was a great success. The musical was extra special for our program as it included Prairie River Middle School students. This gave the younger students a chance to grow their passion for theater and learn a lot of new and useful skills in regards to acting. Attendance for the show also hit record highs in years. All of their hard work really paid off with this performance. Within the last few days, all of MHS students, freshmen, sophomore, and junior, received their pre-ACT scores, which students will be able to use as a way to gauge their future ACT score. Not only is it a way to predict future scores, but it also gives students a way to see their growth between now and the years following. Also today, our high school math league took a trip to UW Stevens Point to participate in a math competition. This was a great opportunity for our math students to put their skills to use and also gave them the chance for them to meet other students with similar interests.
Thank you, Brooke. Isaiah, any board members have questions on what's going on at the high school for our two student board reps? Certainly like to echo what you guys said. Girls basketball team certainly was all over the court last night, taking it to Ashland. Long ride back, I'm sure, for them, not just because of the weather, but because of how well the ladies played last night. So that was phenomenal, and I'd echo what you said with the musical. It's fun to watch all the different ages perform and getting middle schoolers involved, as I was able to sit in the middle school educator section and hang out so they could be supportive as well, which was very nice to see as well, that many of our staff members were there to encourage that performance. So, any board members have anything else to add or to share with Brooke and Isaiah? Hearing nothing otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mr. Murray. We do have a Board of Education learning opportunity tonight, and I'd let Shannon introduce that for us.
So thanks, Kevin. So the state report cards became public very recently, and Glenda Legensky is here to kind of share some of that information and kind of explain those report cards and what they mean. Take it away.
Thank you. So it was kind of a little iffy, a little dicey like the weather, because these were just released publicly yesterday, so I had to have a plan B just in case DPI said, oh no, sorry, we have a lot of mistakes we have to correct. So fortunately, they are released. I tried to cut the report down this year as compared to last year. I don't want it to overwhelm, but I appreciate any feedback that you can share. Once I'm finished, I will share this with you because there are links within the presentation so that you have the ability to go in and look more closely at every building's school report card. So we'll begin. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So the first slide is just a reminder that the scoring, the scale was changed last year, and it was lowered. Also, something to be aware of as well. When we came off of COVID and did our first round of testing, we did not participate in the text-dependent analysis, which is the writing portion of the test, and students typically have to read like 2 different stories and then they have to write a response. It could be a compare, contrast, which is usually a more difficult portion of the assessment, and we did not have to do that in 2021, but we did in this past year. So we'll start with Washington Elementary. And I've learned some things that I was not aware of before we consolidated. When we got the school report cards, I was in communication with DPI because there were some questions that I had about the changes that they had made with the school report cards with the weighting. It's a very complicated process that they go through to determine what the scores are. And I learned that when we consolidated, the data is a 3-year rolling process, so it's never just a snapshot of that current year, but it takes into consideration 3 years past. So I was talking to Shannon today about it. Had we have known that, we may have looked at things a little differently, because when we consolidated, the 3-4 building took the Washington school report card data, which wasn't bad data, but because the Washington building had less poverty, their achievement had a heavier weighting than any of the other schools. Growth was more heavily weighted, which is not an easier way, but it's a way to show some good gains to make up on the school report card. So Washington did improve by 1 point. As I said, their data is tied to the previous K-5 Washington building, so it'll probably take 2 more years before we have data that's just from the 3-4 building. So essentially what happened was we kind of lost the data that came from Kate and that came from Jefferson. So had we known that, we may have looked at keeping Kate as the 3-4 building and having that school report card, or Jefferson or something different. But when you consolidate, there's no one giving you that information ahead of time. And they also have no target group. When they changed how they reported the school report cards, if you have a subgroup of like 20 students, then you have the ability to have a target group outcome, which is like a school report card within a report card. And it's the lowest 25% of all different categories combined into one. And Washington doesn't have that because of the 2 years previous rolling data of the prior Washington. So it's very complicated, and I'm happy to try to help explain it as best I can. The middle school improved 2 points, which is good because we had seen a decline, and last year they had improved and gone up a point, and this year they went up 2 more points. Some of the improvement factors were PLCs were implemented. There was professional learning around differentiation of instruction. They also have a reading teacher there full-time as well. Additional instructional coaches were hired to do collaborative planning with teachers and provide support with their instruction in the classroom. And along with that was collaboration of the principals and instructional coaches, where we worked together and really focused on instructional strategies and priorities and how to really move the needle as a district, along with the vetting process to adopt high-quality resources. And the high school, unfortunately, they dropped 7 points. And you can see there's a difference in, if you look at the little wheel on the right with the different colors, Shannon's school report card had pretty equal achievement growth, a target group, and on track to graduation, which tends to be a better balance as compared to like Washington. And their heaviest part was achievement, and that's always the most difficult to have to move if you don't have that growth component in there as well. These are the current ACT district comparables. They're similar. I laid it out just like what I did as a whole district, our school report card, and I'll show that to you later. I remember, Kendra, last year you had said that was my favorite slide. That was all I really needed to see. So I included that, and I added the ACT. And then this is just some trend data over the years of the differences since we went through COVID and the decline in our ACT scores. And this is historical trend data for the ACT Aspire, because that also makes up a portion of the high school report card.
Glenda, can you go back to the ACT score?
Sure.
I happen to know the previous principal there. So one of the things I want to point out is that pre-COVID, we were doing the whole pre-ACT suite and the preps for those kind of things. When COVID came, we stopped doing that, including in 21, 22, because it's a very heavy resource-driven, both in cost and in manpower. And so we were kind of nervous about those scores. I'm happy to report that Tricia has a plan and has brought those things back. And so I'm confident that we'll get that turned around. But I think that's worth noting that that dip.
And DDA, they exceeded expectations, and as we all know, they're the #1 virtual school in the state of Wisconsin. We're very proud of that. Unfortunately, because they have 50% open enrollment, their scores don't count as part of our district school report card, unfortunately. So they don't get calculated into the overall scores. And you may recall in the past, we talked about.
Just a quick question. No, it's okay. If BVA, if we had 51%, like what percentage do you need to have it count towards our scorecard?
I don't know, maybe it's 49%, I just know 50% or more open enrollment, they don't have in that district.
Okay.
Yeah. Sad but true. Okay, and then the next slide shows the gap analysis between our students with special needs and students without special needs. And as you can clearly see, we still have quite the gap there. We are working to try to close that. And I will have to say it has improved, but we still have a long way to go. And that's part of our identification, if you recall, as well. And then we still have a gap with our students of poverty and those that are not in poverty. The gap isn't as much as our students with special needs, but we still do have that gap as well that we are working to close. And when you look at the Wisconsin Forward Assessment, the scores are based on proficiency. Proficiency is the goal. They want all children to be at a level of proficiency. And they give us points for the 4 areas. So if a child is below basic, it's like a 0.5 and then a 1.0, and then it goes all the way up to 1.5. So you can see over time, we are starting to improve that. So there's many ways that you can look at the data, but our proficiency is going up in ELA. Where we had dropped down, we are starting to trend back up. And it's the same with math, and the same calculations, 1.5 for advanced, 1.0 for proficient, half a point for basic, and no points for below basic. And this is all of our forward and DLM. And DLM is the dynamic learning maps, and it is an alternate assessment. And Kevin, I believe you were at one of the administrative meetings where we talked about test participation rates, and it's very important that we have all of our students participating and that they are taking the tests that they are supposed to be taking. So this looks at the proficiency rates of the DLM and the forward, and you can clearly see that over time, our proficiency rates are improving. So we are growing. It may not always show on every single school report card, but it is getting better, and we are working toward gaining more proficiency. And this is the overall district school report card. We meet expectations at 65.6. Unfortunately, it was a drop. We dropped 3 points on the school report card. And while I have this slide pulled up, if you look at this link at the bottom, when I send this to you, you can click those links on each building and it will take you to that building school report card, and it goes into much greater detail. And if you have questions, I'm happy to help answer anything that you may have after you have time to look through it. Okay, these are Kendra's favorite slides. So when I started reporting the data out, this was where we started. At that point, our school report card as a district, you can clearly see we were only doing better than one surrounding school district. Last year, we made great gains, but again, that was the year that we did not have that one portion of the tests that we usually had been taking, so we were very pleased and proud of the progress that we made last year. This year, we fell back some, not a whole lot, but we did fall back some. But I also think it's fair to also point out that of all these schools that are up here, there were 7 school districts that also dropped as well. And I'm sure that the text-dependent analysis had a little bit to do with that as well. Yeah. Thank you very much. Questions?
Okay, so it's a 3-year rolling data. Is there any way to break that down where like you can see based upon the previous year where the weaknesses might have been, or is it an overall roll up?
So if you look at the links, there is a page that shows like 3 consecutive years, and it will show you the different groups of students by race, special needs, and it will show you the percentage that scored proficient, basic or advanced, but it doesn't calculate all of that for you that you get from the school report card.
Okay, but as like administrative levels, like they could get that data and look at like individual areas or classes where they need improvements?
We would use our FastBridge data to do that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Good question. And I think it's also important to note that when we get this information at the beginning of the year, this is one of those data points that the buildings look at when we have our data analysis days after we do our FastBridge testing. That's also considered when looking at what students need as far as interventions and what have you. Yeah, we try hard to make sure it's not a one and done.
Thank you, Kendra. Any additional questions for Glenda? Anything else on the topic you'd like to share, Mr. Merrill?
No, thank you, Glenn. I think you did a nice job with that presentation.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our administrative reports. I'll turn things over here to Mr. Murray to discuss those.
Thanks, Kevin. First in this section is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction report. Brenda is, of course, here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to speak. Then next is the Pine River School for Young Learners monthly data and some other reports in there from Mr. Martinovich. He is here, I believe, in the back. I saw him. Here he is. Item C is our food service report, and attached, Laura Krause has a participation report in the board bites for the month of October. Laura is not here this evening, but I could answer questions or forward those on to her if there are any. Item D is the Director of Special Education Pupil Services report. Karen Baker is not here this evening, but her report focuses on Project Search. Any questions on that report? Item E is the Director of Business Services report. Dr. Strike is here to answer any questions. And then item F is the Director of Building and Grounds Transportation update. I see Dale Bergman's back there. He's here to answer any questions if there are any as well. And then last is the Superintendent's report. A couple highlights from that report. Of course, I make mention of the failed referendum on November 8th. At HR Finance, we discussed that we would just kind of pause on the whole notion of a referendum for a little while and let the dust settle and regroup and revisit that sometime after Christmas as a concept and see how we want to proceed with that. So no talk of referendum in this meeting. Aside from what?
Besides that.
Yeah, besides that, okay. We will start developing budget scenarios. Dr. Strike and I are meeting tomorrow to start that process. She's meeting with Forecast 5, so we get a better handle on some projections and things next week, and so we'll start proceeding accordingly as we build that. We will make some recommendations sometime this winter or along the way to the board to keep you updated on that. We had a calendar committee meeting last night. As I shared with you in the past, we're just kind of revisiting the calendar for the 23-24 calendar to see if there was anything in there that should be revisited or changed. And we had, felt like 15, 16 people from all levels and all different working groups. And it was a very good discussion. So there's a lot of really good ideas that came out of there. We're going to kind of put those together and get back together in a couple weeks and perhaps come back to the board with some tweaks or something for the 23-24 calendar. So that, I think, summarizes my report for this month. I'll be free to answer any questions that anybody has. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Murray. Next on our agenda is our committee reports. We'll start with the Facilities Committee. Attached were the draft minutes from the November 2nd committee meeting. Myself as chair and other members of the committee are here and available for questions along with Mr. Murray and Dale Bergman. Do you have any questions for the Facilities Committee?
I got a couple.
Okay, Chad, go ahead.
With the digital sign, is there a breakdown on what it actually is gonna cost? I saw, I think, an overall cost, but not what it would cost off of each budget. We were gonna take it through, I lost it here, I had it up.
I believe it was between ARPA funds and the Prizzle budget.
Yeah.
It is all ARPA.
It's all ARPA now, because in your thing, I thought it said both.
When I put it together, we didn't know what the cost was gonna be, so we covered it that way, it's all gonna be ARPA funds.
That doesn't cost anything, right?
ARPA is like the Head Start equivalent of ESSER.
Okay, the only thing I have with, and I'm gonna bring up that needs to get out there because of the failed referendum, and now we're putting up a digital sign. You know exactly what people are gonna say when they drive by is, well, how can we afford a digital sign? I understand it's not gonna cost us anything, but it needs to get out there, and I think that's part of our issue with they don't realize where the money's always coming from and see certain things.
That's a good point.
And I had a question with the Kids Kingdom Bill. How long has that been empty?
I think 4 years ago, we went and released with Kids Kingdom. We're on year 4 of the release with, now that I think 4 years ago, yeah.
Is there a reason that we don't move Meta in there instead of leasing?
Yeah, I think the short answer, I'll let Dale expand on this, is that it's virtually unhabitable. The building.
But we're still heating it and stuff?
I'm assuming.
At the time when Kids Kingdom was in the facility, We brought information to the board about the capital maintenance cost of windows, HVAC, et cetera. And Kids Kingdom wanted to do another 4-year lease. We didn't know if we wanted to sustain those buildings at that time because we were declining so much. We talked about consolidation at that point already. So we determined not to do the lease with Kids Kingdom anymore. And then we had an opportunity to put the NAC program into the bigger space, which helped with some of the behaviors by spreading all the building there. So we've been using half of that building, and then the rest of it used for storage or warehousing right now. And that overlapped a little bit when Mata went to the city, and we got removed from the paper mill. So it did line up for the timing on that part.
Are we in a lease with the city, or are we just like a yearly lease?
We had a 4-year agreement with them. It was $400 a month. But they also include all the custodial fees, and we just basically pay for space.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, if we got open space, according to my math, we have 2 open buildings and we're leasing space, so it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so all those Jefferson, Kids Kingdom, all that'll be part of the facility study that we'll be bringing to you next month. Yeah, I think it would take some substantial funds to get Kids Kingdom up to where it needs to be to get a Mata or somebody in there. Certainly Jefferson would fit into that.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, we also use substantial funds to do a consolidation to make sure that everybody fit in the new building, so.
Kelly looked up Chad for clarification, it was December 2019 when the lease with Kids Kingdom.
Thanks. There. Thanks, Dale.
Any additional questions for our facilities committee members or for Mr. Bergman? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Finance Human Resources Committee. Attached were the draft minutes from the November 9th committee meeting. Brett Waller is chair, and other members of the committee are available for questions. Do we have any questions this evening for the Finance Human Resources Committee? Jacqueline?
I just thought of this after, 'cause I attended the committee meeting, but I'm not on it. And we discussed, it was just talked about how the referendum had failed, and if the levy increases that were penalized for 3 years, I think they wrote. So my question was, if you rerun for referendum and it passes and the levy was increased, does it either backdate, does it post at time referendum pass, or do you have to wait for a new levy increase?
Yeah, so it's not the levy, it's the state, either the revenue limit or the low revenue ceiling limit provided by the state.
So if that raises.
Yeah, so we have that will go into effect if April fails. Is that correct, Kelly?
No, it's already.
It's already in effect?
Mhm.
So if we pass in April, those things wouldn't, any of those 2 state moves wouldn't take place till after July 1st. Either way. So if we pass in April, then we'd be okay. If we fail in April, we're under the penalty, starting in July.
We're penalized.
Right, and so the low revenue ceiling hasn't changed in
3 years.
3 years, and state revenue limits have not been great the last, 6 of 8, they've been 0. So, the short answer is yes.
We're already at the low limit rate.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really doesn't affect us unless they would raise it.
Yeah, and they do from time to time, so if they were at 10,000, if they went to 10,300, we don't get the other 300 currently. And that went into effect at the last, prior to November's.
But if they increase it between now and April, so they increase the state, the 10,000 to 10,500, whatever it might be, we pass it in April, do we get the 10,500 beginning in April, or are we still penalized for 3 years?
So it would go into effect July 1st on the state side.
On the
So-
state side, okay. So you wouldn't get it until July 1st?
Yeah, it'd be part of the next biennium budget.
That was all.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. Any additional questions from the Finance Human Resources Committee or from that agenda? All right, we will move on to our CTP Committee, or Curriculum Technology Pupil Services. Draft minutes were attached from the November 9th committee meeting. Maria and other members of the CTP Committee are here and available for questions. Do we have any questions for our CTP Committee members this evening? Chad?
Is there a reason we got, because we're gonna, if I read that right, we're gonna January 2nd off for the students. Is there a reason that the staff is reporting and not having off?
Well, I suppose there's several reasons. One is that we have that calendar already set for the contract days with, those kind of things. There's an opportunity to get some work done without students. The reason we're not having students is because the city's closed, and largely because we don't have Merrill around to transport a lot of students. So.
I mean, most places are gonna be shut down.
Yeah.
On the 1st.
So I sent that survey I sent the survey to our principals today to kind of see how they would like to proceed with that day, and so we'll take a look at that pretty soon.
All right, thanks, Chad. Any additional questions for our CTP Committee or from that agenda? Hearing no others, we'll continue on. We don't have anything under the category of unfinished business. So we'll move to Board of Education business, and that first item is a water softener at Frizzle or Pine River School for Young Learners. The topic summary was provided by Dale Bergman and a recommended motion from our Facilities Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Maria?
Move to approve the installation of a water softener at Pine River School for Young Learners.
Motion by Maria. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Linda. Do you have any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Any discussion or questions on the motion? Kendra?
I only have a question because of Chad's question. So it has the ARPA and Fund 50. Is it still ARPA and Fund 50? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
See, like, that ARPA fund has to get used.
Right.
And so that's why, it's gonna get taken out of there because if we don't use it, then we lose. I think, or something like that.
Any additional questions on the motion or the topic? As we'll call for the vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda is the digital signage at Pine River School for Young Learners. Topic summary sheet was presented by Dale Bergman and a recommended motion from our Facilities Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Paul?
I move to approve the digital signage at Pine River School for Young Learners.
Motion by Paul. Do we have a second? Second by Maria. Do we have any discussion or questions on the motion or this particular topic? Chad?
Just that it would make sure that we get it out to the public, that it didn't cost the school district anything somehow.
Did they put a message on the sign?
Well,
I will do that.
Any other questions or commentary on our motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda this evening is the adoption of the 2022-2023 Transportation Handbook. There was a draft of said handbook provided and a recommended motion by our Facilities Committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Paul?
Move to approve the 2022-2023 Transportation Handbook.
Motion by Paul. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Linda. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Any questions or discussion on the motion or this topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the changing of January 2nd, 2023 to a no school day to align with the city's holiday schedule. The topic summary was provided by Superintendent Murray, and there's a recommended motion from our CTP committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Maria?
Move to change January 2, 2023 to a no-school day to align to this, with the city's holiday schedule and approve the revised 2022-2023 school calendar.
Motion by Maria, do we have a second? Second by Jacqueline. Any additional questions or discussion on this motion or topic? Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Murray?
No, just a follow-up to Chad's question, perhaps, and it's kind of to be determined. If we didn't have a workday that day, 10-month secretary and aides would get dock pay. So that kind of factors into this equation, whereas the salaried people don't. So we're trying to be sensitive to that as well.
Any additional questions on the motion or on this topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the Merrill High School batting cage donation from the family of Owen Cordova. Topic summary sheet was provided by Dale Bergman, and donation form was provided from the Merrill baseball team. There is a recommended motion from our facilities committee. Do we have a motion this evening? Kendra?
Recommend a motion to approve the installation of a batting cage upon receipt of funds from the Booster Club, which were received after the facilities meeting. And it is further recommended to approve the donation of the funds valued at $10,000 from the family of Owen Cordova for the Merrill High School baseball team to construct a batting cage at the Merrill High School.
We have a motion by Kendra. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Linda. Do we have any questions or discussion on that motion or this topic? Any questions or discussion on this motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda was put on here on a board member's request, and I think many board members have asked. It's the UW extensions cuts and how they affect Merrill Area Public Schools. I'll turn it over to Mr. Murray for a quick intro of our guests and the topic.
So, yeah, so I believe it was last month this question was brought up, and so we thought we'd get right after this and get this question answered for you. So I reached out to Art Lurch and Debbie Mondorf from the extension to ask what the impacts would be on our students or on students in our community. And so if you click that link, there's a really nice chart, kind of outlines all the programming that they do that will be ending. When I kind of went through that, it became kind of unclear is what truly the impact would be on students. So I asked Debbie and Art to come on in and just kind of explain the impact on the elimination of the UW extension on our students. So feel free to come on up and it's your show.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll do just a very general overview related to extension overall, and then Debbie will be talking about the helping and reading program more specifically. So as of November 2nd, the county board budget process ended, with the county board voting in their budget for 2023. With regard to extension, what is left, I think that's easier to talk about to begin with, is the 4-H program and the Food-Wise nutrition education program. which we do in the school systems, the schools that qualify based on DPI ratings, economically disadvantaged schools. So we'll be providing those two programs. We will not have an office support staff person. I think that's important to mention. So people coming into or trying to come into the office, we will not have the capacity to serve them, answer questions, whether they're 4-H questions, health and well-being questions, agriculture, community development type questions, etc. Those educators are also going to not exist in January, starting January 1. So health and well-being, which is Debbie Mollendorf, Elizabeth McCrank, our community development educator, and our agriculture educator, Scott Boyce. And as I said, our office will not be open or a closed door because we won't have the capacity to answer those types of questions. So that's where we'll be on January 1st. We're doing our best to prepare to move forward with 4-H and food-wise. But again, unfortunately, Debbie's work, which you've seen in the packet, much of that, the vast majority of it, will not be done. So, are there any questions about the general overview for extension? I know that's very quick. If not, then Debbie will talk about her program.
Sure. Thank you again for having us this evening. Again, in your packet was that document that outlined the programming that I have been doing over the last several years. And it's really difficult to know what the true impact is going to be of this position going away. But I'll try to highlight just a few examples of what I think some of the impacts will be on students, on parents and caregivers, on staff, and on the community. So first of all, let's start with impact on students. I have been leading the social norms projects since 2007, with students at both the middle and high schools here. The project involves conducting a survey every 2 years with students, and then working with a group of students to develop an educational campaign to correct the misperceptions that youth have about their peers' substance use. It's based on the social norms theory. It says if you believe that your peers are using, you are more likely to use, because again, fitting into the norm. So again, we know that that's a huge influence on young people's choices regarding substance use. The absence of this effort will likely lead, I can't say for sure, will likely lead to an increase in substance use, because again, we're not countering those messages through this campaign. Another program is Learning to Breathe, and again, that was in your packet. I have been offering that program for middle and high school youth to help them develop skills to manage their emotions in healthy ways and to expand their stress management skills. COVID has had a huge impact on all of us, including students. Many of them are struggling. No one else is trained to offer this program in Lincoln County. Therefore, youth who are referred to this program by counselors, by social workers, and others, based on their struggles, will no longer have this program available to them. Again, no one else is offering this program or trained to offer this program. Raise Your Voice Club. I know you're all well aware of the Raise Your Voice Club. You have heard many times from that group. And they will continue to exist through the support of the 3 high school staff who are serving as their advisors. In my role, I was the person who brought the idea to the school to start a Raise Your Voice Club here. I've secured funding to initiate the club. I've coordinated projects that the school staff don't have the time or capacity to do. And I've provided training and other resources to support the club. So without the support of my position, the club's reach and efforts may decrease due to the capacity limits of the school staff that are taking on that sole role of advising them. This also includes, there's been some discussion about initiating the club at the middle school. I will be here to help in initiating that club. So those are just 3 impacts on students. So impacts on parents and caregivers, which ultimately also impacts students. We know in the social norms survey that middle and high school students continue to indicate that their parents are one of the most important, believable sources of information about alcohol and other substances. And we know that from the social norm survey, that's consistent from year to year and has been back to 2007. I have led an educational campaign over the last 4 or 5 years that reinforces this finding, that kids believe their parents. It's important for parents to have these conversations. I've been using the Wisconsin Department of Health Services Small Talks campaign. Hopefully you've seen the billboards, the banners, all of those things out there. Encouraging parents and caregivers to have conversations with their children beginning at the age of 8. And that campaign and that resource provides resources to parents to have those conversations. I also have had the lead role in developing and offering the mock teen bedroom display. It has been offered since 2019 for nearly 300 adults in this community. The display provides information about where drugs can be hidden in plain sight and warning signs that a young person may be engaging in risky behaviors. Materials for parents and caregivers or other adults to use in talking with youth about substance use are also provided with this display. So again, without my position, no other entity has the capacity to provide these resources to parents and caregivers. Let's talk about impact on school staff. I often provide access to funding and new resources to meet emerging needs. A recent example of this is the teen mental health first aid program that you heard about last month. Again, the funding to initiate this program at the high school came through a grant that Extension Health and Wellbeing Institute received. Without my position, access to this funding and the program would not have occurred. I've also provided training for staff such as mental health first aid, Real Colors, and others over the years. Without my position, Extension may still be able to provide those trainings, such as mental health first aid, but there will be a substantial fee because we'll be bringing someone from outside the county to do that. I've also served as the coordinator or lead of several community collaborations that school staff are a part of, including the Lincoln County Interagency Network and the Healthy Minds Coalition. Through these collaborations, staff develop networks with other agencies who can assist in addressing the needs of students. That's where networking happens, that's where that occurs. It's unclear at this time if staff from other agencies have the capacity to continue those groups. So the future of those groups is unknown. So lastly, impact on the community. People have often described my position as being a catalyst in the community. Often I've been the person to bring others together to figure out how we can use our local resources along with those of the university and other outside resources to address these needs. It is unclear if others have the capacity to be this catalyst, and access to university resources will be very limited without my position. I want to conclude with a thank you to the Merrill School District, staff, and students. It has been my privilege to partner over the past 33 years. A highlight of my time here in Lincoln County has been the work that we've been doing over the past few years to address mental health needs. I'd be open to any questions.
Thank you, Debbie, well done.
Do you know like an estimate of students that are enrolled in these programs right now if we were to add a number?
Theoretically, with social norms, that would reach all of the middle and high school students, because that's a campaign that is across the board. Learning to breathe, I have done probably 3 classes. I would say I've probably reached about 50 students with that total, again, at this point. Trying to think of other things. Raise Your Voice, obviously, is huge.
Mental health first aid.
Mental health first aid. Yeah. See, mental health first aid is, I mean, every student in health class is going through that. At the high school, we're just wrapping that up, working with Tricia and Hallie to wrap that up. So again, probably more so at the middle and high school has been where my focus has been, less at the elementary school.
I probably know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it. I don't like no. So what else can be done? Is there anything else that can be done with reaching out to the UW, for their funding? What, I'm just curious.
So, what we try to do in cases like this is we try to provide sort of new positions for our educators. They would not be serving Lincoln County communities directly, but we attempt to find private funding or nonprofit funding, another entity that could help us fill some gaps with regard to our finances. As I've said in the media over this budget process, extension cannot provide the funding alone. It needs to be a partnership because we don't have a budget for that. We can't support educators for a very long time. But for some time, if we have a partner, we can do something of that nature. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Thank you.
I'll add that, so the district recently received a mental health academy grant. And one of the things that we are exploring pretty aggressively is this notion of a mental health navigator to help set up and coordinate all of the pieces that will be part of that grant. And we've had discussions with Art and Debbie about, similar to what we do with CISA, contracting out parts of Debbie's time. And so we're pursuing that pretty heavily. So we need someone that can like set this whole thing up. I mean, clearly Debbie has the expertise and the resources and those kind of things to make that happen where, you know, whether it's Trina or Allie or Karen Baker or whoever, they don't necessarily have the time and the expertise or the connections. So we're looking at that very, very aggressively to use that grant because it's a one-time, set it up for a period of time, and once it's set up, it's set up. So that would be potentially helpful for us in the short term.
That's positive.
Yeah. And of course, we would bring that to the board for, you know, once we got closer to that point. Oh, good.
Art, Debbie, whichever. In the news, this has been a big event. And yet, with my connection at NTC, I know that UW has a humongous budget balance, somewhere in the area of $50 million. I've also been told that you can get grant money from that $50 million. Is that factual, or is that just a wish?
I don't have the answer to that question.
Have you looked into it?
No, I wouldn't be looking into it. Our dean would be looking into it, and others above me. But I'm not aware of the funds that you're talking about.
And how many UW programs have been cut in the last 10 years, the extension programs?
Over the past 10 years, we've received some FTE cuts, for example. The most recent one was the agriculture position, which was moved down from a half-time position to a 20% position. And that was based on a restructuring of how we provide agriculture education throughout the state. We went to more of a regional county-based model. So our ag educator is currently 20%. Bill, that 20% will go away as of January 1. He's in 5 counties currently. He will be in 4 counties when Lincoln County, when the 2023 budget kicks in.
In our area, 5 counties. Do any of them, have any of them made this same cut, or are they supporting the UW extension?
So that was a university-driven request of the counties to actually reduce their investment. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
I think he's asked, what you're asking, Paul, I think, is whether there has been this kind of reduction in other counties.
Yes.
With extension, not the ag position, but.
Oh, you mean
Extension, the UW
similar to
extension,
Lincoln
the total
County.
UW extension program.
Yes.
It's in 72 counties.
It's in 71 counties.
71 counties.
So in Vilas County, that was the only county that eliminated extension services.
Okay.
That happened approximately 3 years ago. And we take, from time to time, reductions in positions. Sometimes that's based on county needs, meaning a county may come to us and say, we need a different type of educator and we'll do everything we can to fund that, but there might be a reduction in another position in order to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So we're the second county, there's only 2 counties in Wisconsin that don't, have you guys?
So Vilas County is the only county in the state that doesn't have any extension education. Lincoln County, as of, again, January 1st, 2023, will still have 4-H and will still have the FoodWise program. So extension still technically exists, but it's been greatly reduced.
Jacqueline?
What is the FTE or your time that you put into these programs?
I am a full-time
You're
FTE for Lincoln County, so what you had in your packet was a list of all of the programs that I deliver. And again, it's hard to distinguish where students are impacted or not impacted by them. So I included them all, so that you would have a picture of all of the programming that my position has been delivering. And those are recent. I didn't include things that were years ago that I had done for the last 3 or 4 years.
Jacqueline, our early discussions have been that our arrangement with extension for the mental health navigator position would be 40% of Debbie's time, funded 20% through the grant that we have, and the balance through the UW. So,
And the university's committed to that.
yeah, it'd be 2 days a week. We think, I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but we think by having her be the navigator person, we can still steal away a little raise your voice time and some other things maybe. So.
Once she's in the school.
Yeah.
I'm not this year, so.
But that's a short-term solution too.
And just, I guess I can add that the other 60% of Debbie's time would be spent on statewide type programming, health and well-being programming.
Go ahead, Brett.
What's like if you could, is there a round number or something of an approximate of what your FTE would cost in its entirety?
So, in its entirety, this whole package would be about $134,000. So.
And that's everything you had included in, that's the summation of what you had attached to us.
Yeah, that's wages, benefits.
Yep.
Fringe benefits. Yes.
Jacqueline, go ahead.
I want to make sure, because I felt like I heard 2 different things. So Vilas County 3 years ago eliminated it, or they never had it?
No, they eliminated the extension program. All of it.
And did they have the same, like, okay.
No.
I was gonna say, because could we go back to see, like you said in your delivery, we don't know what this looks like because we just don't. But I just wondered if there was anything to be captured one way or the other from Vilas to help support.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But if they didn't have the same programming that we're looking at losing, then it's hard to go back and say, you're right, this community did see an increase in student or adolescent drug or alcohol use, or because of our social norms project being gone away. I don't know, I was wondering if there's something to be gauged there.
That's a good thought, but when that occurred, we took our investment and invested it in other counties. So every county is different, by the way. They don't have the same suite of educators. So every county is different. Vilas County, for example, did not have a 4-H program. But they had other things like community development that I mentioned, human development, and
Art, is it safe to say that we have UW Extension and Lincoln County in name only, and really we have a 4-H program and a FoodWise program? Is that safe to say?
in name only. That's
That might
a
not
hard
be fair
one
for you to answer. Maybe there was a statement there. Never mind, strike it.
Yes, thank you for that. I will say that we're we're committed to making the 4-H program, or keeping the 4-H program very viable, and certainly the Food-Wise program as well. We have vacancies in the Food-Wise program right now, and we're starting to move ahead to try to fill those vacancies. So that might be the best way to answer.
Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
One more question, and I don't, trying to ask this question, and I look like a bad guy. Okay. Lincoln County's farming industry is gone. It left on one of the last ships. When I started here in 1970, we had hundreds of farms in Lincoln County. And now I don't believe we have 15 farms anymore. Is that correct, you think?
No, I would say it's probably more than that.
Okay. I've been on the road for a long time. So how many kids are we impacting that are actually farm kids in 4-H? And how many kids are, say, in the city that want to be a 4-H'er, which is fine? Is there a number that you can put to that?
So I can give you the 4-H numbers.
Mhm.
We have about 260 youth enrolled and approximately 100 volunteers. And it varies from year to year. Our enrollment is year-long, so it really kind of never ends. But that's been kind of, I would say, the average over the past few years. There was a dip during COVID, which was to be expected. We did a lot of virtual programming in 4-H during that period, but we're starting to see some numbers come back. And so again, around 260, 65.
And farms to me, and I should have asked this first, farms to me are people milking cows or beef cows. But we have a number of horse farms, don't we? People
Yes.
actually raising horses, selling horses.
Oh, yes.
So that would take my number and stretch it out a little bit.
Right, and also 4-H is much more than the livestock side of things. We do STEM program, I mean, Debbie,
Yeah.
you talk about that more.
Probably one of the fastest growing projects in 4-H is the robotics. We have a large group that's involved in robotics. They just received a donation from the Merrill Community Foundation to purchase new equipment because they have so many kids coming. They meet every week. They're going to state competitions. They're going to national competitions. So again, I know the part of 4-H that people see is the county fair, and everyone goes to the livestock barn, and everyone sees the livestock barn and all the animals, and that's a draw. But we have lots of other projects in 4-H, that for 29 years, so we talk the 4-H language, but I would say when you break down that membership of 260, I would estimate that about 30% of the kids live on a farm, 70% do not.
Maybe that's a number, can I talk one more time and I'll quit? Maybe that's a number that has to be brought out. While this whole thing was going on, I'm thinking of how many farm kids we have, how many farms we have. And as you know, I'm on the board at NTC, and Merrill County has a huge farming community. They are starting to lose also, by the way, I just found that out. So we talk farm kids is all we talked about, but maybe, you know, we need to understand what 4-H really is. It doesn't have to be a kid on a farm. It can be somebody in town wants to participate in something. Just my thought, I guess. If I ramble too much, I apologize. By the way, the coroner's office got hit too, so.
I know.
Any additional questions for Art or Debbie?
I'd just like to say thank you both for all your time that you guys put into the county and the schools.
Thank you.
Yes,
Again,
thank
for
you.
your support over the years, I think that we said earlier, it's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is a correction from last month. September, we did approve and recognize a donation from our community foundation. We did not mention that it was in memory of Rick Geiger. So there is a recommended motion, not that we're getting additional funds, but to correct that so that can be properly recognized. Maria?
Move to approve the donation of funds from the Community Foundation valued at $2,500 for Merrill Marching Band Tournament of the Roses travel expenses in memory of Rick Geiger.
A motion by Maria, we have a second by Paul. Any questions or discussion on that motion?
Is this Tom's son?
This is Tom and Lynn's son.
Thank you.
He's a classmate of mine, really looked forward to band. He unfortunately died in an automobile accident heading back to Oshkosh, going into second semester senior year.
Yes.
So, unfortunate situation, and this is one of the ways they wanted to recognize him and the band program, so. Any additional questions on the motion or topic? Otherwise, let's call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the personnel report, the hirings, recruitments, resignations, retirements. Attached is the report from Amber Drizzo and Dr. Kelly Strike. There is a recommended motion. Maria?
Move to approve the attached personnel report contingent upon the satisfaction of the appropriate liquidated damages for resignations if applicable.
Motion by Maria. Do we have a second? Second by Kendra. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Any discussion or questions on the motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carried. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Before I ask for that motion, I'll ask if anyone wants any of those items pulled from the consent agenda to be dealt with individually. Seeing no hands, I would ask for a motion then. Someone is willing to make that motion. Kendra?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D, which includes minutes of the October 19th, 2022 and October 24th, 2022 meetings. Receipt of the October 24th, 2022 annual meeting and budget hearing minutes. Second reading of revised policy 6610, student activity funds, claims, vouchers, and receipts totaling $3,587,293.09. and donations totaling $4,550.
Motion by Kendra. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Maria. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Linda?
I'm abstaining from October 19th minutes and October 24th.
Paul?
Abstain from October 19th minutes.
Brett?
I'll abstain from a portion of the October 19th minutes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries with the
The first 38 minutes.
abstentions as noted. Next item is our items for future meetings. We do keep a running list of topics, but now would be a chance for board members to bring up anything that they would like brought to future board meetings as a whole, or to go through committee. Does anyone have any? Yes, because we made it all the way to abstentions.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was laughing at Brett and I missed my place. Sorry.
Any items for future meetings or things to clarify that way? We do have some that we've talked about, but anything that came to mind fresh in the last few weeks?
I just
Maria?
had one, I think, easy one. We had talked, and maybe I missed it in one of Dale's reports or in facilities or safety, but we had talked about at the middle school having those flashing signs for the walkway across.
I think I even saw it on Third Street. I didn't look on Second
I
Street
think we
yet.
were supposed to give an update on the maintenance committee, but we haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I was just wondering where that was at, because I know I drove by there the other night when it was snowy, and a student ran out in front of me. It was about 7 o'clock at night, So it's just scary when you go by there and the
Sure,
kids
we
are
can-
running across the street.
We can get an update on that. on
That
the
would be
next-
great.
And if you can even add that to your report, because facilities doesn't meet unless called upon until January. Just get a little update from Dale on
Third
that,
Street
and we
was
can
in.
go from there. Paul?
I thought Third Street signs were in.
I think recently.
Yes.
We'll talk about functionality, maybe a little education of students and staff or
The only
awareness.
reason I know is I
piece.
went by and the lights were flashing when they kind of surprised me.
I'll include a short version of the update on Fridays.
That sounds great. Thank you.
But not serious.
Any additional items for future meetings? All right, just a reminder that tomorrow is the radio program. MAPS does have a representative every Thursday. Tomorrow, Mr. Murray and I will be on there.
Minus Mr. Murray.
Minus Mr. Murray, that's right, you're at a conference, so I will be holding down the radio program with
You'll do
Lonnie,
just fine.
and going through tonight's meeting at 8:15 a.m. Future meetings, we have the Head Start Policy Council on Tuesday, December 13th at 5:30 p.m. at Pine River School for Young Learners. CTP next meets on Wednesday, December 14th, 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom, followed by Finance Human Resources on Wednesday, the 14th, 5 p.m. or immediately following CTP in the boardroom. The next regular board meeting is slated for Wednesday, December 21st, 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom. I believe that covers all the meetings that we have. Would like to thank everyone who did brave the elements on Monday night and went up to the school forest. We did have a school forest advisory committee meeting, which was a subcommittee of facilities. Following that, we did have some people that were able to go up there. It was very informative, and we can report back on that in the future as well. But a lot of good information there, and a shout out to the Friends of the School Forest for hosting us that evening. So I think that's worthy to share to everybody at a future time as well. So next on the agenda is a contemplated motion to adjourn into executive closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes under section 19.85, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The purpose of the closed session is for the purpose of considering and discussing employment, performance evaluation data of a teacher. We have that motion this evening.
So moved.
Motion by Maria, do we have a second? Second by Linda. Do we have a roll call on that, please, Tammy?
Kendra Osmus,
Aye.
Jacqueline Grumler. Aye. Maria Volpe.
Aye.
Brett Waller.
Aye.
Linda Yingling. Aye. Paul Crew.
Aye.
Chad Krieger.
Aye.
Kevin Blake.
Aye. All right, at this time, we will